Hello, welcome to another plant-based cooking class here live on our Facebook page. Before we get started, I'm going to put the recipe that we're doing today in the comments below this video. So if you didn't get the email, the recipe will be right here for you to access. So let me do that really quick while we also wait for a few more people to join us. Okay, there we go. Now I've got the recipe posted there in the comments. Took me just a moment to get it all figured out. We should be ready to go now. If you didn't, feedback. If you didn't get the recipe, like I said in the email, it's there in the comments for you. And we are ready to get going. Today we are making vegan falafel pita sandwiches. I don't remember if I introduced myself, by the way. My name is Melissa. I'm the dietitian for Health Aware. So let's get going. More people will probably join us as the class goes on. So welcome to those of you that are here now, or welcome to those of you who are watching at a later time throughout the day or in the next few days to follow. I'm glad you're here. We're going to start making our recipe, and the first item, you'll notice that there are kind of 4 lists of ingredients in this recipe today. So one is pita bread, which you can buy at the store. We're not making that today, but the other 3 recipes, the other 3 ingredient lists we are making today. We're going to start with the falafels. That's sort of the main ingredient in our food for today. Hi, hi Andrea. So first thing we're gonna do is preheat our oven. So I'm gonna step over and do that. We're preheating it to 400 degrees. Get that going, and it should be ready by the time we're ready to put our falafels inside. So we're not frying our falafels. This recipe is an oven-baked version, so a little bit healthier than frying the falafels. And mostly we're going to be using a food processor. All 3 recipes actually use the food processor, so I'm just going to be rinsing it out in between. You don't need to clean it out fully because a lot of the flavors are very similar throughout the 3 recipes. So I've got all of our ingredients here ready to go. First, we have a lot of bright, colorful things going into our recipes today. So here on the plate, I've got, you can barely see that. I've got our 2 cloves. I'm doing 2 cloves of garlic because they seem a little bit big to me. So we're doing 2 cloves of garlic. If they are small, you could do 3. I've got a 1/2 cup of red onion. It's pretty much just a 1/2 of a red onion is about a 1/2 cup. So that makes it kind of easy. And it's okay if it's not exact the same amount that's in the recipe, it's okay. And then here I also have the cilantro leaves. This is a 1/3 cup of packed cilantro leaves. It's actually quite a lot. If you'll notice, it's not the leaves only. I left the stems on because it would take so long to tear off a 1/3 cup of cilantro leaves. So we can just use the stems as well. They're all going to be processed in the food processor, so they'll break up really finely. And then over here, we have a 1/3 cup of our fresh parsley. This is actually Italian flat leaf parsley. So it's slightly different. The curly parsley is kind of the regular parsley that you'll see around. I got the flat leaf. It doesn't really matter which one you use. They both taste like parsley. To me, this one is just a little less, this one's a little nicer, not as coarse maybe as the curly parsley. So I'm going to put these items into our food processor, hopefully without dumping anything anywhere. Okay, all that in. There we go. So these items we're going to process first, just for a few seconds to kind of break them down a little bit before we add in the softer type of ingredients. So bear with me if this gets a little bit loud. This is your warning to turn down your volume if needed, okay? And as you need to scrape down the sides, so like I have a giant strand of cilantro that didn't get processed, we don't, ooh, that's really strong. Ooh, big blast of parsley. You don't want it to be like a paste, but we don't want giant strands of cilantro or parsley left, okay? So the consistency that I have, you can see it here. The consistency I have is very finely chopped fine mince, if you will. And then, get this on. We're going to add in the garbanzo beans next. So I have 1 can of the garbanzo beans. I've already rinsed and drained them. I always recommend doing that. Even if you buy a low sodium version of beans, I still always recommend you rinse and drain out that liquid that's in them. So we're gonna put that directly in. And usually when I drain rinse, I leave the lid on, cut the lid off, leave the lid on and pour water into it and kind of swish, and then use the lid to drain out, swish, use the lid to drain out. That's just kind of how I do it, but let me get rid of this. So we've got our garbanzo beans in here. We're going to give it another little spin. Again, scrape down the sides as needed. You don't want it to turn into a total paste with the garbanzo beans either. You want a little bit of texture, but no large pieces of the garbanzo beans. Okay, so that looks good. This is our consistency. Where's my camera? There we go. This is our texture. So I'm going to add it now into the bowl. We're not doing any more of the falafel portion in the food processor. It's a little sticky. So add this to our bowl. And I know I've said before that I don't, if you've been in my classes before, you've heard me say I don't like garlic or onions. And that is still true. I don't like garlic or onions at all. But they're, in this recipe, they do kind of mellow out a little bit, and it does taste very good. And my husband assured me, because to me it tastes like garlic and onions. Anytime there's one of those ingredients in a recipe, that's what I taste. But my husband assured me that any other regular person would think that there's not a lot of garlic and onions in any of these foods that we're making today. So in case you're wondering why I'm cooking with garlic and onions, it's just because the rest of the world does eat them. So we've got our ingredients here. We're going to add the rest of everything now, more of the dry items. So we're starting with the ground flaxseed. This is the one that I have. You can find it at stores like Sprouts, Vaughn's, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's even. Pretty much everywhere sells some version of a ground flaxseed. And you do want to make sure it is ground, not the whole seeds. So it's kind of like, oh, Don't want to dump it all over the counter. It's kind of like a meal, little powder, okay? So we're adding, it's not very level, is it? We're adding 2 tablespoons of this into our bowl. Flaxseed is very, very good for us. I'd said in a previous video that there are a lot of health benefits to flaxseed. It's very good for prostate health for men. It has omega-3 fatty acids in it. Great food to have. Next, we're going to do a 1/4 cup of our breadcrumbs. So I have whole wheat breadcrumbs. Okay, these are from Sprouts. You can use regular breadcrumbs if you want, but I figure if we're making this, we may as well do as many healthy things as we can. So I use whole wheat rather than the white. We're only doing a 1/4 cup right now into our mixture. And then you'll see there's another 1/4 cup in the ingredient list. So we're actually putting that, make sure I don't spill everywhere. We're going to put that in a separate small bowl, which is later in our directions, but we may as well do it now while we're measuring. This is going to be for, we're going to roll each of the falafels in that to kind of give it a breading on the outside to crisp up in the oven. Then our last 2 ingredients, we have ground cumin. Okay. We're doing a 1/2 teaspoon of that. The onions in this are making my eyes water a little bit. I promise I'm not crying, it's just the onions. And we're doing a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I made this recipe a few days ago, and the onions were very mild that I used. This onion is not quite as mild. So we're going to stir that together. Okay. Oh, I don't know if you heard that beep, but that's our oven that has finished preheating, so it will be ready when we are ready. Okay. So it is a decently crumbly mixture, but when pressed together, if you can see that, when pressed together, this will hold into a patty or a ball type of shape. We want to make sure also before we start getting our hands messy that we have our baking sheet with the parchment paper on it ready to go. Ooh, my glove is stuck. I'm going to set that right here so I can put our patties onto that as we make them. I like to use gloves for this kind of thing because I have gloves and it makes cleanup in a video much easier, much quicker, but you don't have to wear gloves, of course. Okay, so the size of patty that we're looking for is 1 to 2 tablespoons. I use one of these little easy cookie scoops. This is 1.5 tablespoons. So when you're making in the 1 to 2 tablespoon range size, you should be able to make 14 or 15 patties, okay? Scooping it. And then I'm pressing it together into sort of a small patty shape, a little more flat. I'm not making like round balls like meatballs. I'm making more patties, okay? And then dipping in the breadcrumbs and putting on our baking sheet. Okay, so these may or may not, probably will not finish baking in the time that we are here live on our class, but I made a recipe of these previously, so I will have one to show you what the finished product is. So again, we are baking these, not frying, so we didn't use any oil in this recipe, if you noticed. Feel free to ask any questions at any time while I am doing all of these. The pita bread, so I do have some pita bread that I'll show you at the end when we put together our falafel sandwich. I got that at Trader Joe's. You can use the kind that has the pocket if you want, or you can just, so you can fill it, or you can use the kind that you would just fold over as a flat sort of sandwich. Do you have nutrition information? So on this one, I don't have the nutrition information. I can figure it out if you really, really want me to. I am happy to do that. It certainly will have carbohydrates in it because there's beans in this. Oops. But, and the breadcrumbs, of course, as well. But as far as things go, these will be on the lower calorie, lower carb, lower calorie, lower fat side because we are not frying them. And there's really not, a lot of the bulk of the ingredients are vegetables, all of the herbs and the onion. There we go. And carbs are not necessarily the enemy, especially when we're eating carbs like beans and whole wheat breadcrumbs. And then the other recipe, the next recipe we'll be making is a salsa, which has very, very few carbs in it because it's pretty much all vegetables. And then the dressing we are using, the lemon tahini dressing, will have decently few carbs in it as well because there's not very much in there that is a carbohydrate type ingredient. We're using tahini, which is more fat, a healthy fat, and then a bunch of different seasonings and lemon juice. So if you really want, I can take the time to figure out the nutrition information for you. I usually do in our recipes, but this one was very complicated. There was a lot of ingredients to me. But let me know if you really want it, and I will do it. Okay? I'm almost done with our little patties here. I was trying to get them all done so you could see them all finished. Oh, and I should show you I don't know if you can see the breadcrumbs, a very, very light coating, okay? Not a lot, so not thick covered. I can still see some of the falafel mixture through the breading, but it just does give it kind of a nice, crunchier, crispier, that's a better word, a crispier texture, which is nice since we're not frying, which would give, of course, a crispier texture. We're kind of trying to help it out in the oven. So depending on the size of falafel you will make, you'll probably get somewhere between 12 and 15. On the recipe I have 14 to 15, but it really depends on how generous you are being with your scooping, okay? I've got one more I think I can make. So mine today made about 13. So pretty close. Trying to get all the last bits of our mixture. And then we will pop this into the oven. You'll notice on the ingredient or the directions that the baking time is kind of in two parts. So we will bake it for 15 minutes first, and then remove and rotate, flip over the patties, and cook again for another 15 minutes so that they can get browned on both sides. Okay? So that may actually happen while we're here live. You'll get to watch. Okay, so there we go. Throw away my gloves. Where do you get your, oh, my aprons. So I don't know if any of you have noticed, those of you who've been watching these classes each time I've done them, but I've worn a different a different apron every class, but this is the last one I have. I only have 5 aprons, so I don't know if you've noticed. Most of them, I think all of them actually were gifts. I've gotten them all from people, my mom or my dad. I think that's where they've all come from. So this is my vegetable one, which I thought was appropriate considering how many vegetables we are using today. Yes, I have 2 cat ones, if you've noticed that too. So, all right, let's get these into the oven, okay? Ooh. I don't want to tip them over, but this is what we have going on, okay? Put these in the oven. So in 15 minutes, we will check on those and flip them. Let me get all of these messy things out of the way so we can start on the next recipe, which will be the salsa recipe. And we do need our salt for that. Now, like I said, we use our food processor for all of our recipes. I'm going to rinse this off really quickly. I think I angled the camera. I think that you can still sort of see me over here, maybe a little bit. One of the few, or many, nice things about doing the cooking classes from my own kitchen is that I can rinse off things, wash off things. If we were in the classroom right now, I don't know how I would be able to do this recipe because I don't have a sink to be rinsing off all of my equipment on so quickly. So that's kind of nice. Quick little dry job on this, and then back onto the machine it goes, the blade on. I'm even actually using the same spatula, which makes cleanup much easier the fewer items we have. I have to wash everything by hand, so I try to use as few things as possible. Okay, now we are going to make our salsa. So this has lots of beautiful colors. I can't really see them very well, but you'll see them as I put them into our processor. So we're going to do the tomato cucumber salsa. First thing that goes in is our tomatoes. So I already measured out 1.5 cups. These little guys. I think these are, they're not called cherry tomatoes or grape tomatoes, but they look like grape tomatoes or cherry tomatoes to me. So it doesn't really matter. Whichever little tomatoes you want to use is fine, okay? Into the food processor, those go. And then we are doing our onion. Ooh, I have to touch it with my hands. Yeah, I don't really care for onion that much. All right, next we're doing the cilantro. So this is about 1/4 cup. If we squished it all down really small, about 1/4 cup. Okay, and again, the stems are on here, but they will get chopped up into the food processor. And then we are doing a tablespoon of fresh lime juice. I've just got a few. I'm not even really measuring this one. Usually it's like, depending on your lime size, 1 to 2 limes. I went ahead and chopped up 2 just in case. I'm gonna do 1.5. There we go. That one has a lot more juice in it. So I'm doing 1.5 limes. Again, not super important if you measure that one that much. And then we reserve the cucumbers for after this is blended, as well as the salt. So keep those off to the side. These 4 ingredients are in here. So I'm going to process these guys up just a little bit, kind of into a rough chop. Okay. Doesn't take very much. Actually, let me scrape down the sides and give them a couple more pulses. You don't want any of the large pieces of the stems of the cilantro. That's not as appetizing, I don't think. So just give them a few pulses, just like that. Okay. So here is our salsa consistency, kind of a rough, chopped up, like a pico de gallo type of a salsa consistency, if you will. It is a little bit juicy, so I try not to get too much of the liquid into the bowl, but it's okay, it's not the end of the world. Into the bowl this goes. Can you see that? I think you can. Okay. Super simple salsa recipe to make, which is really nice. And all of the fresh ingredients are really nice this time of year to be using for cooking. There we go. Leave that for later. So we've got our salsa part of it here in our bowl. And next we're going to add in our 1/2 cup of chopped up cucumbers. Okay, chop them however you like. Obviously this is slightly more than 1/2 cup since it's above the cup line. Doesn't really matter that much either, which is the nice thing about this recipe. I say the more cucumbers, the better. And then we're also doing our salt, about a 1/4 teaspoon of the salt, more or less to your taste, if you like, that is fine. And then just give this a quick little stir together, get the cucumbers and the salt dispersed evenly throughout. Super, super simple, but it makes kind of a nice fresh component to this dish we're making. And I love all the colors. There you go. Get you closer. Okay? So that was it. That was the salsa. We're gonna set this one off to the side and we will use that one when we're ready to assemble. So again, now for our last recipe, I'm going to rinse this off and use the same things all again. Let me get this out of our way and give this a quick rinse. Do try to get all of the ingredient pieces off before you make the dressing, because we don't want a giant piece of cilantro or tomato to make its way into the dressing, but it's not going to be the end of the world if that happens. Okay, everything is going into the same pita anyways. Okay, give it a quick little dry. Okay, that's kind of the nice thing about cooking vegan things, is there's no cross-contamination issues to worry about. We didn't blend any kind of meat or anything that's gonna make us sick, so it's great. You don't have to fully wash these items in between use. Okay, we've got this ready to go again, and we're going to make our quick dressing. I'm making a mess. Okay. So, where's that? There we go. Got our ingredients. Liquids in there. And our bowl. So again, into the food processor, we're going to do the 1 clove of garlic. Okay. And then we're doing our, let me do the other things. I don't have to measure first. So we have an entire 1/2 cup, you can't see it, but it's in there, an entire 1/2 cup of lemon juice. I squeezed all the lemons. I didn't think you'd want to see me squeeze 6 lemons during this video, so I went ahead and did that already. To get a half a cup, it did take me 6 lemons for this. When I made it before, it took me 7. It just depends on your size of the lemon. I use a little lemon press. I can actually show you. I use this tool to press the lemons. They go inside, and then you press and the juice comes out and keeps the seeds trapped inside, so you just get the lemons, lemon juice. It's a little bit messy, it kind of sprays out sometimes, but it does save your hands from having to squeeze the lemons. So we're gonna add our lemon juice carefully into there. We're also going to do our water. So I have a little water in this dish. We're doing 2 tablespoons of the water, just to thin it out a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to do, I may as well do our oil. So we're doing just 1 tablespoon of our oil. Okay. So I use extra virgin olive oil. I'm going to show you. There we go. I use extra virgin olive oil, which is really one of the healthiest oils we can be using. Oil in general, I don't want you using a ton of, but sometimes it is important for our recipes to taste good and appropriate. So extra virgin olive oil is a great choice, especially for something like a dressing that's not going to be cooked, baked, fried in these raw type of preparations. The extra virgin is a great option. Okay, then what else have I missed? I'm kind of saving the tahini for later. It's the messiest one. So I'm going to do more of our nutritional yeast. We are doing 3 tablespoons of this one. So if you've never seen nutritional yeast, it is, try not to dump it, it is yellow, very yellow, and kind of like a flakes, like a powder. Okay, add in 3 of those guys. This is found at many stores these days as well. This one is from Trader Joe's. You can also find it at Sprouts, at Vaughn's, at Whole Foods, pretty much everywhere these days. Pretty much all stores carry this somewhere in the store. Okay, and then we've got salt next. So we're doing where'd my 1/4 teaspoon go? There it is. We're doing a 1/4 teaspoon again of our salt. Adding that guy right on it. Okay, and then the final thing to add is our tahini. So if you've never experienced tahini, guess what? I actually really dislike tahini as well. But when it's in a recipe, you can put this in other things like hummus, and there's all sorts of dressings that include tahini. It actually does enhance the flavor and make things taste very good when it's part of something else. But by itself, I do not like it. Tahini is, sunflower. Tahini is sesame seeds. Let's see if I can show you. It's like the peanut butter with sesame seeds. So it's very liquidy, kind of thick, runny, like sort of like a really thin peanut butter would be, okay? Made only with sesame seeds. So the ingredients in this is only 100% organic, roasted and ground sunflower seeds. That's what you really want to look for when you get tahini. This one is from Sprouts. They do not sell this at Trader Joe's. I actually went searching for it there a couple days ago. They don't sell it at Trader Joe's. They have every other kind of nut butter you could ever want, but no tahini, at least that I could find. But other stores, Sprouts, Whole Foods, Lassen's, possibly Vaughn's, I've not looked there myself, will have tahini. So I'm doing a a very messy 1/4 cup of this into our food processor. Okay. Here we go. Try not to spill everywhere. Okay. So again, there it is. Unsalted is what I usually buy. Any type of nut butters. I usually get these kinds, like the unsalted versions of them, okay? Everything in here. Whew, that was on. Okay. Make sure your processor is turned off. And with this recipe, I do recommend putting your hand over the top of the food processor if it has a hole like mine does, because it is kind of splattery because it's a liquid, okay? So here we go, for real. Okay, so yes, a little bit splattery on out of the top because it is so much liquid. So everything should be nice and processed, very liquidy now. And when I store this, I just store it in an airtight container in the fridge, and it does thicken up just a little bit. So it's a little more thin right now, more like a dressing. And then in the fridge after a few hours, a few days, if you save it for a few days, it will become more, not quite to like a, not quite as thick as like a hummus, but certainly thicker than it is now. There's a little spider I'm watching on my counter. It's getting really close to my camera, so if it crawls in front of the camera and I scream. Okay, so a little bit more on the thin side, like a dressing, okay? And it's actually time to flip over our falafel. So before we assemble, I'm going to bring those out and show you the flipping of the falafels, okay? Let me clear my space though, so we have somewhere to put those. If anyone wants to come over and do some dishes, I will feed you pita falafel pitas if you clean my dishes. No? No takers? All right, let me grab our falafels. So this is what we have so far. At Trader Joe's on the bottom shelf. Oh, so someone has found tahini at Trader Joe's before. I wonder if maybe it is a seasonal type of item. Sometimes they have these ingredients that are only around at certain times of year. Maybe tahini is one of them. Because I looked. So that's good to know. Maybe it actually is there sometimes. Okay, so we've got our falafels here, and I'm just rotating them over. I think you can see that, yeah. Just flipping them over. They are somewhat more golden brown on the bottom than they are on the top right now. So we're gonna rotate all these over. I flipped that one. And then give them just another 15 minutes in the oven. Okay. You know, it's like, I feel like there's some sort of creature that's always walking through my videos that I do, because I managed to get the cats out of the kitchen today, but now I've got a spider running across my counter. I'm destined to have creatures baking with me. They were out for, oh, they're out. Okay. All right, so put these back in for 15 minutes, okay? All right, in the meantime, we will assemble using the falafels that I have from the time that I made them already for us. I will grab those. So I have them stored in just a little, there we go, in a little Tupperware. I've got parchment paper in there too. I keep them stored in the Tupperware. There we go. Okay, breaded. Usually when I reheat these, I like to put them in our toaster oven. You could do the oven if you prefer, or even like on a skillet, just like a dry skillet, to kind of re-crisp up the breading, because it will get a little bit soggy if you leave them in the fridge for multiple days. So I like to crisp them back up, heat them back up before putting them in to the pita. You can eat them cold, totally fine. So let's get, this is the pita bread. This is actually whole wheat pita bread. Found this at Trader Joe's. I'm not sure what other stores you can get the whole wheat pita bread at, but I definitely know you can get it from there. I've gone ahead and cut it. This is the kind that has the pocket in it. Okay. So, into our pita pocket. Try not to make a huge mess here. We can add some of the falafels and some of our salsa. There we go. Some of our salsa. Actually, I'll put some of that in first. If you want, you can also put things like hummus along with it if you have a hummus that you like from a store, or if you like making it yourself. Hummus would also be a great addition to this. Or some lettuce would be a great addition as well. It's really, really whatever you would like with these special ingredients that we just made today. I'm trying not to dump everything everywhere. Okay, so here's what we've got so far. Okay, I'm gonna use a spoon for this. Then we add our tahini drizzle. Don't want to make a mess too much. Over the top, just a little bit. And there we go. Any questions about anything that we made today, please feel free to type that in the comments. I can answer those now or later when the video has ended. Even if you're watching this video recorded, I will still be able to see anything that you type in and can answer your questions. Looks yummy. Good, thank you. Yeah, hopefully you won't find these recipes too overwhelming. Sometimes when there's a lot of ingredients, it can be overwhelming, but a lot of the ingredients repeat throughout the recipes, so you can sort of prep onions for everything and cilantro for everything. So yes, I will be able to see your comments later on. If you think of questions that you have, happy to answer any of those. I will be doing another cooking class 2 weeks from today, so stay tuned for the recipes for those. Tomorrow I will be here teaching the beginner full body workout class. Not here, I probably won't be in my kitchen for that. I'll be in a different room. But I hope you join us then. We have a new class coming next week. I'll be sending out an email and posting on our social media for that as well. We're going to add a meditation class on Tuesday evenings at 5:30 with Shannon. So stay tuned for the information about that right here on the Facebook on live. I think that's all the announcements. So I appreciate you all watching live or recorded, and I will see you again in 2 weeks. Bye.